Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of the Low Code Cafe, episode 49. Today it's a special edition. We have a special guest that we invited to demo a system that was built in just a couple of days. We will be hosting Loredana and Anne-Marie from KPMG, that in the hands-on part, which you'll follow in the second part of the webinar, will show us how they managed to build an advanced contract management solution using Plant and App and a chatbot software called Druid AI. But for those of you that are new to this webinar, let me give you a brief introduction. My name is Bogdan. I am the founder and CEO of Plant and App. And this is an event that we are doing every week, same day, same hour, and it's a community event. We are doing demos, hands-on development. We are showing what's coming in the releases, and we have stories coming from the first line, from support, from the trenches, with our head of support. This webinar is being recorded and all past editions are available on our YouTube channel. We'll post the link in the chat window in a few minutes, so make sure to visit, follow, and subscribe and get lots of valuable content every week. Also, since this video will be 1 hour in length, make sure to check the description of each video, as Dale is putting links to various chapters inside the video, so very easy to navigate. Cool. So without further ado, I would like to pass the screen to Dale to give us the from the trenches part. But before that, just note that you can engage us at any time. Please use the chat window, use the Q&A window, and we are here to build good content together. Thanks a lot, and I will pass it to Dale now.
Hello, good morning. So today's From the Trenches is inspired by a question that we got on a community forum. One of our frequent users asked a question that ended up needing a custom validation. And so as part of that, as part of our support, we provided at least a template of custom validation for him. But this kind of goes along with a series that we did back in the several months ago, talking about the different ways that Plant and App can be extended. So first of all, I want to point out, and I will add a link to this when we post the links in a moment, that there is in our, there's a video here. It's now 5 years old, just as relevant as when it was written, but how to build a custom validator for action form. And so that link is there. It's a nice 5-minute video that walks you through what I'm going to do here as well. And since that one focused on a regex style validator, I'm going to focus on a SQL style validator. And then Bogdan today has given me an idea for perhaps we'll take this topic up again in a new episode to talk about it in terms of an API validator. So let's talk about what we're going to do. There's action form allows you to set up validation, and it's all through our template mechanism, and it's going to be very similar to what you've seen before. There's 2 types that are built in, regex and SQL. And again, that regex type is the one that's on the video on the blog. So if you want to do one of those, I definitely encourage you to take a look at that video. So today we're going to talk about doing a SQL type validation. The path where these exist is here on the screen. I wanted to make sure that you have a reference to that. But we're going to start from our default XML, which is where the validators are defined. We make new ones with by changing the title, and the validator needs a new title and validator name. And then in the SQL type, we just return an error message if the validation fails. So the demonstration I'm going to do is about whether or not a user exists. So I'm going to create 2. The user exists by user ID. User does not exist by user ID. So let's see, in my setup, what I have so far is a I've placed a grid. I've got a page called Low-Code Café number 49, Custom Validator. I've got a grid that shows my users, and I've dropped a form on the page, and there's nothing on it yet. So if I were to manage the screen and add a field onto it, we'll call it a text box, and it's going to be, I'm going to name it user ID exists, and I'm going to create another one, just really a copy of that one, and I'm going to call it user ID does not exist. And the idea here is that, I mean, we're doing a SQL validator. You can do any style of SQL as part of this, but we're going to do a very simple one just to check to see whether a user ID exists. So the idea is that when we type a user number here, this is going to validate that the user exists already on the site, and this one is going to validate that the user ID does not exist. So as we look at the way the validations are set up, in the validation section, there's custom validators, and there's a list of them here, and there are some having to do with whether or not the user exists by their email address or if the username is available, but there isn't anything that deals with whether or not the user ID exists. Again, this is just a contrived scenario. You can come up with your own validation that you want to do by SQL, but we're going to take it, we're going to use that as an example. So I'm going to jump over to my file system, and so this is the file system for this website, and now I'm going to follow down that path I mentioned: desktop modules, DNN sharp, action form, config, validators. That's the trick. You got to know where the path is, but there is a default XML that defines all of the validators that we ship with the product. Now, since this is the default one, you can change it, but if you do, next time that you install our software, it's going to overwrite it. So the better answer is that we make a copy of it and modify it, because all of the XML files that are here will get added to the custom validators. So I'm going to edit this and do a save as, and I'm going to call it our custom user ID validators. As long as it's called XML, it's going to be loaded when the system loads them up, exists in that path. So there's a whole lot of validators that are in here as this is again from our defaults, and a lot of these are regex style, but when you get to the bottom, there's these ones that we were looking at that are SQL style. They're SQL validations, and so this is kind of the one that we want as a pattern. So I'm going to erase all of the other ones out of our custom one, and then we'll give this a new name. And so we're going to call this, let's see, user does not exist, and it has to have a different name from anything else on our system. So we're going to call this user ID does not exist. And then within the SQL, there's a SQL statement here that says that executes, and if it returns a non-blank text, that is the error message. So we're going to modify this SQL that's already here to come up with what we want to accomplish. So in this case, I'm going to remove this not and say where the user ID equals value, that we're going to return an error message, and the error message is user ID is. So the way that this reads, if we take the value that's being validated, and that's going to be passed into us automatically, and this select statement is going to run, if that exists, we're going to return this error message. And then the title of this, we're validating that the user does not exist. So if it does exist, we're going to return an error message. And that's it. While we're here, though, I'm going to do two custom validators. So So I'm just going to copy the one I've completed, and this one is going to be the opposite. This is going to be user exists, and it has to have a different name. If you don't make a different name, it's just going to confuse you because it'll overwrite one or the other, and it will not be doing what you expect. And this is, so it's going to be called user ID exists. And in this case, I'm just going to flip it around and just say not. And the error message needs to be flipped around as well. So this is going to be user ID does not exist. So we have a valuation that is enforcing that the user ID exists. It's going to run the SQL statement to determine it and return an error message in the case that it doesn't pass the validation. So that's it in a nutshell and very quick. And obviously I've prepared for that. So it's it takes a little bit longer to think it through what you want to accomplish. But now we have the defaults that existed before, and we have the custom validators that we've created. Again, it doesn't matter the name, just as long as it's an XML that exists in this path. So going back to our website, in order to pick up a custom validator change or a new one, we need to go to servers and restart the application. So that is going to force that all those things that need to be read are picked up. And so we'll get our new content, and I'm going to refresh this screen. Since I already had, I don't know what, so I'm guessing, and this is welcome to the demo bug, right? I'm guessing that I have made an error in my XML with this. And so I'm going to look at it, make sure, see what I've done. If anybody spots my error, let me know. And for just such a case, I'm going to, I said I'd prepared, and I'm going to copy in one that I had already completed. So we'll go to my backup and grab it and paste it here. So this has the same content, and I hopefully haven't incorporated the same mistake. So we'll try again. We'll go to our servers and restart the application and just make sure that the page loads. So apparently I'm guessing I made a syntax error in that first round, and normally that would be another 5 minutes, but I hate to do that live, and now I've killed it. So I'm going to make one attempt to unkill it. And then we're going to call it broken and a failed demonstration. Let's see if I can make it go. All right, one more attempt. So I guarantee you I tried this 3 times this morning to make sure I could show this to you without blowing up. I know some of the people that frequently say they like to, that frequently come to these meetings say they like to see me struggle. I don't enjoy it at all. So I'm going to go to our configuration section. I'm going to look at the errors and see what's happened. Well, it's loading at the moment. So I'm going to assume that perhaps it's going to work. So we'll try it. So we go into, we've got our form, we're going to manage it and go into each of them. This is the user ID exists one. And so we're going to use our custom validator and say user ID exists by user ID. And on this one, we're going to pick our other validator. User ID does not exist by user ID. So when we refresh, let's see if we can get it to work. So if the user ID exists, we pick a user ID off our list here. 1, it exists and it doesn't give us an error message, but 4, it doesn't exist and it gives us our error message. When the user ID, this one is enforcing user ID does not exist. So if I type a 1, it gives us our error message. 2 in the same way, but 4 doesn't exist. Okay, that was painful. I don't know why it was so hard to do, but it did the work. So hopefully the video will be useful to you. Again, anything that you can express in SQL is can be part of that validator. And as Bogdan was prompting me, the API style validation is better yet. So we'll take a look at that in an episode coming up. In the meantime, I will stop sharing and turn it over to who's next. I think Reza is next with our product roadmap updates.
Yep. Thanks, Dale. Hey, everyone. Just going to give you, last week we rolled out 1.14. Have had some good adoption there, and no, knock on wood, any kind of major issues to report. There was a couple little hiccups in certain scenarios, but one of those has a little hot fix. I don't think it impacts 99.9% of people. Everything else has been running along swimmingly. So as always, I encourage taking the updates. And let's just take a little preview at 1.15 and some of the major themes and goals we have going as we get closer to it. Release candidate in July 12th. Which can be available for people that want to kind of early adopt and help us test. And the stable will come out a week later after we kind of have our week of internal baking period on our sites, the community portal, support center, console, that sort of stuff, always making sure that we're blazing the trail with adoption. So the big couple of items particularly is the ability to import starter apps from a template. So if you make a little application, it's got some entities, some workflows, kind of the works, and it does a thing, whether it's a little ticketing system, something that can manage a approval workflow, any number of things, even something like the Remember Me that I showed a few episodes ago. I've had a lot of people reach out and are interested in recreating that one and maybe didn't want to have to do everything from scratch. And so you'll be able to import these applications in. That kind of sets the stage then for being able to export out and package up applications. So again, that's going to start giving the birth to the marketplace, the ability for us to share with each other. And ultimately, the learning and groundwork that we lay in with that is going to position us to support multi-environments and being able to go back, restore, this sort of thing. But it all kind of starts with, can we take the whole payload of what makes up an app and bring it in and have your target application believe that it is that application. So that's underway. Talked about this one a couple of times, again, because I think it's just going to be such a huge thing once it comes out. A lot of uses, and people kind of wonder, how did we ever get by without this? But the ability to run a workflow as a token. So using the parameter outputs that are on a workflow in line anywhere that tokens are supported in the application, cause that workflow to run, do its logic, calculations, retrieving data, whatever, and give the result back for that particular parameter. Should I let them pass as the parameter, and you put it somewhere and it'll run the workflow and then determine conditionally, do I enable this feature or not? Do I want to, you can have it return back HTML, CSS, JavaScript, whatever, that you can even embed into pages of your application so that as the page hits, that workflow runs, gives its payload of HTML, and that's what shows up on the screen. So you can get some real dynamic functionality without having to really write code or Razor or anything like that. This one kind of came in, and you know, I don't know if you guys remember, we had the calendar that came out a few releases ago. Part of that work was a new kind of modern, fresh looking and better performing listing, a tabular grid output. And so wanting to bring that template online, probably we'll bring it out as an MVP, minimal viable product. If everything kind of goes well with it, it'll probably become the default when you create an entity and it creates the pages and layouts for you. It'll probably be the default you start with, similar to how you can enable or turn on the dashboard tiles to be utilized. And I think once we pushed that out there like that and made it kind of default in, we saw a big uptick in adoption. And I'm thinking the same thing will happen here. So this is going to have all the features that are needed kind of out of the box when you first set up an entity. You specify, can I sort, can I search, can I filter, the links, the buttons, you know, the basics that come with out of the box, that will all be there. And rather than try to port every single feature that's in the current grid listing template into this one before we give it, we can kind of let your voice come and say, hey, this is great. Boy, if only I could. If it only did what the other one does here. And that'll start kind of giving us direction on our backlog of what are the features that we want to bring in as we move to ultimately deprecate the legacy one. And this one's the go forward. A lot of work in the developer experience, and particularly on stability fixes, enhancements, this sort of thing, stuff that's coming in from the portal and the support center. A few of those items, the reCaptcha v3, long overdue. We're going to have that in place and supported, keeping our work going with just making the date time experience very seamless. And as you pull dates, generate dates, capture them, and are passing them around within your application, whether it's for display or storage in the database, calculations, this sort of thing, everything just kind of works. Not a whole lot of need to transform and manipulate things into different formats to move it around is the end state we're after. We did some work on that in 14, going to continue that here in 15. This one I'll show you in a second, the on-error events on the entity actions. So I'll just not talk about it for a second and get through the rest. You know, we have the page builder theme skin now, and that's what comes with your entities and things you're creating. However, the login page, the password reset page, some of those kind of system pages that ship with the system are still using the old Plant and App theme. And so we're just taking some actions to make Page Builder be the theme for everything, ultimately then wanting to deprecate and sunset out the old Plant and App skin. And so, you know, if you were on the login page right now, you wouldn't be able to use Page Builder to very easily bring things in, make adjustments to your look and feel. You kind of do it the old-fashioned way. So just wanting to, especially if anyone's wanting to do the Remember Me, things like that, you'll be doing some work on those pages and just wanting to make that a better experience to work with. I know in the community forum, there's been a lot of discussion on Too Sexy content. They had some major updates to their product come out, and we have some shared libraries, and there was some numbering of these libraries and versions that were conflicting with each other. So we've been reached out with them. They've been really great. We've figured it out together. We're going to make some changes on our end to isolate our independent usage of these libraries so that we're not kind of fighting for or pointing to the same exact files. We'll keep it in our own location, and then each of us has control over what we're doing. So this basically just means that you'll be able to install and run the two together. Now, your results may vary when you go to do advanced integrations of the two and stuff, but we kind of have committed, and we want to make sure that out of the box, kind of the back of the house side, the two can be installed and play nice with each other and run together. So I know that those discussions are out there, and just know that we're on it. We had to do some work, pulled in DNN Corp for some advice and stuff, but we've got it sorted, and that one's coming. If anyone's really blocked or hot to trot for that, do reach out, let me know, let us know, let Dale know, and when it's ready, I can get a hot fix together for you. There are some steps you could take now as a workaround in the interim manually, but we'll have it all right as rain very soon here. And like I said, if you need that, let me know. Doing some work on the licensing side, just making sure that the resiliency is there, also being able to support multiple domains against one license. And so the last thing I just kind of wanted to touch on, and this one I'll just show, is got a little workflow pulled up here. So, one of the real powerful benefits of Plant and App is for basic CRUD, create, read, update, delete actions, we give you actions that are making you not need to write SQL, right? These actions generate or do SQL behind the scenes for you, and all you need to do is provide a, point it kind of to the data that you either want to update or read in, and it kind of takes care of all the data layer and talking to the database for you. One of the things I noticed, especially when you're using them in workflows, and we've demoed and looked at workflows a lot in the past, and doing some checks and splits, and especially when you have multiple workflows going on, and you're kind of saying, hey, I was doing one with someone the other day where they're trying to calculate sales commissions, right? So they've got a little tracker they've made, and as their sales are happening, they want to be able to generate an invoice based on the commissions for the sales they've had. And so there's a few different workflows. One that kind of says, hey, go ahead and get me all the sales I had. Check the commissions. Okay, tally those up for me. That's one workflow. Remember, we like to keep these separated and just kind of concerned with their own little space, but then having like a major workflow that orchestrates these. So go get me my sales, calculate my commissions, start an invoice, put a record in there for that, ultimately leading to a PDF and then an email that gets sent out so they can send their invoice off, right? And that last step, that send the invoice to my customer, that's a very important step, and that's money right there, right? You never want to get the money wrong. And so the last thing we would want to have happen is that something went wrong reading the data. Maybe one of the fields didn't have the commission rate right, math kind of flew over, things happen. And the last thing you want is for that invoice to incorrectly get sent out to your client, right? And so we build error trapping and some handling and validation into our workflows. So we can run some of these actions, run whole workflows. We're expecting certain results, and we can check and say, hey, am I getting what I need from my other workflows that are calculating and figuring things out for me? If so, great, move on down the process. If not, maybe stop, log an error, do whatever, but definitely do not keep moving on down the flow. One area where I saw some a gap for us was that when you're going to use these entity CRUD actions, if they for some reason don't work out, you get an error back, right? And the workflow kind of stops, but it's not a very graceful thing. And so what we've added in here, and we have this on a lot of other actions, is the ability to have on-error actions. So you don't have to, you could have checked and did I have a record, if not, and a whole bunch of other steps, but really this is where the rubber meets the road. And it's when I'm running this action, whether I'm updating or reading, if things didn't work out for some reason and there's going to be an error, don't just stop everything. It will if you don't fill anything out here. But in this case, you can, log an event in the backlog. You can send a notification email. You could halt action on the workflow. You could call a different workflow. So kind of this opens up a whole lot of possibilities of being able to capture, trap, try other things. But most importantly, just makes it easier to make sure that in these mission critical type situations, that you're able to degrade gracefully and smartly, and not just halt operation, but notify somebody, take corrective action, and then recover better and move on. So these will be in all of the actions: the read, the create, update, partial update, delete, all of those. And so looking forward to getting this to everyone and hearing about ways that you're using this. Maybe as we get closer to the release, I'll demo this up a little bit better. And a real good use case was the one I was working through with the person yesterday with calculating the commissions and stuff. And it was exactly what we described, and really found that we needed, this would have solved a lot of extra steps we had to add into the workflow to put some protections in. So I think it's a good one, and it's coming your way. Be on the lookout. That's it for me this week.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Reza, for sharing the product roadmap with us. We are now ready to move to the hands-on part, where we will be demoing the contract management solution that we've built together with KPMG. But before that, just wanted to introduce the presenters, and also give a business context around this solution and this partnership. So together with us, we'll have Anne-Marie that leads the digital solutions department from KPMG Romania, and then we'll also have Loredana that will be demoing the chatbot part. The chatbot part that's very interesting and is done also with a technology that started here in Romania. And finally, we'll also have Radu, our head of support, our very own Radu, show the Plant and App side that powers the chatbot conversational flows. So just to set the context, our growth model is a lot nowadays working with partners, scaling through partnerships, because as you can imagine, and many of the people that are in this webinar are on the partner side. Every solution comes with a service part, and then this service part, the implementation side, requires a partner that can move faster with delivering the services. And for us also, it's getting these partners that are mature, that have a wide array of technologies, because nowadays when you combine two technologies like we are going to see today, that's when you make magic happen. Because in the end customers doesn't care. It's low code, it's chatbots, it's RPA or IoT or anything else. They care that their problem is solved in a nice, clean, modern way. So then from my perspective, I really loved this example, the chatbot integration, because it offers a simplified user experience, right? So it's a natural language where end users no longer have to learn a system. Of course, nowadays you could do a lot of work to improve the UX, make it simple, make everything handy. But the chatbot eliminates all of that because it follows a natural conversation. So I'm really happy with how this partnership is going and how the solutions are building up. And if we have Anne-Marie with us, I would love to also have the KPMG perspective on how this solution, what was the business context around this solution. I see we have Loredana twice, but not sure if we have Anne-Marie. Okay, then until we figure this out, maybe we should just jump to the demo part.
Sure.
And then we'll get back to it, to having this conversation. So I'll just stop my screen share and
thank you.
Loredana, please.
Hello. Just a second. See my screen now?
Yes, everything looks good.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Loredana Chiliac, and today I will show the solution proposed by us, which is an integration between Plant and App and Druid platform, how Bogdan already explained. And the last one, Druid platform, help us to create virtual assistants who have the role of helping and guiding us. And today we'll meet with Kate, our virtual assistant proposed for today. But before to say anything else, I would like to add that the starting point for the chatbot isn't limited only to accessing Plant and App platform. Druid platform support multi-channel deployment, so we can talk here about external channels like web, this is web, or WhatsApp, or Facebook. Or we can talk about internal channels like Slack, intranet, or Teams, for example. It's important to specify that the application has a user-friendly interface. You will see this and can connect with a lot of company application. Today you will see the integration with Plant and App. Everything you see today, it's for presentation purposes, and all what you see today, it's easily can be easily updated according to your business requirements. And if you want to open a new conversation with Kate, you need to press this icon from here. And in the first step of the conversation, you need to select the language in which you want to communicate with Kate. Druid supports multi-language development, so native support for over 45 languages. And it's important to mention that for each language, you can put identical flows or completely different. Now, for this demonstration, I will press English language. And now, firstly, Kate present himself, and after this, we can see the main menu. Here we see all options that we have with this user. It's important to specify that Druid platform and also Plant and App support integration with Active Directory, which means each user will have access only to dedicated flows and contract types, for example. The testing today is done with a user with general access, so this is the reason for which you can see both action associated with the role of employee and contract management action associated with the role of manager. Firstly, I will register a fleet contract in the system, and after this, we will see the contract management part. So I pick contract generation. And firstly, Kate say something about his role. So we understand that our conversation will be guided by our choices and our inputs. And all information that you will see here are extracted from Plant and App databases. And firstly, we see all contract types here. We have here we see a horizontal view. We can scroll between options very easy. But before I told that we do a registration for a fleet contract, so I will pick this option. Based on my selection, now we see all contract templates associated with a fleet contract type. Here we see a vertical view for our option, and we can easily choose one template from here. And now you need to complete the name for the provider. If you don't know the exact name for your provider, you can put here keywords. And if you are looking for a provider that doesn't exist in the system already, you can press yes to retype. You can press no and stop here the conversation, or add a new provider, and directly from here, from the chatbot, you can provide some additional details and can add directly in the Plant and App system the provider. For this demonstration, I will pick to retype, and now I will put something that I know exists already in the system. And here we see all the providers. We can scroll between options, and I will pick the last option. We can see for each provider more details. After this, we need to select the beneficiary company. Here, in our case, we need to select the KPMG company, and I will pick one of them. And we need to provide some information about the contract. Firstly, we need to complete the amount, and after this, we have the possibility to select the billing cycle. And now we need to specify the start date. The flexibility of the platform allow us to put the date in this format. If you don't specify the year, chatbot automatically will put the current year here. And for the end date, I will specify also the year. And now the chatbot do for us automatically this calculation for us, contract duration, and put here the value in months. And here we have three options to go to the next step, stop conversation or modify some details. We can change the start date or the end date. Or if you press this button by mistake, you can press this option are correct and you will go automatically to the next step. You need to provide the details about car. Firstly, you need to provide the brand. After this, you need to specify the entry value for this car. Just a second to send this email and before. And now we put the entry value, the place of delivery receipt. I will put KPMG office. And in the end, we need to specify the value of penalties. So now I put the value after data retrieval is complete. Here we see a summary with all collected data, with all our selection and simple inputs. And here we have just a second to drag. And now we have these possibilities to go to the next step, modify some details from here, or cancel or stop here the registration for the contract. I will press modify to see what we can change here. So we can change what we want. And here in the end, we have this button, all correct. If you press this button, you will go to the next step. What's happening here? We send all collected data to Plant and App. Plant and App do the registration for this contract. And now in real time, you will see this. The status for this contract is a draft. And us in a chatbot receive an access link. And the employee must select an approval flow for this contract. If I press this one of them, we will see in real time that for our contract workflow was updated. And now Kate asked us if we want to add a note for our request. No, I don't want to add a note. And in this moment, the status for our contract was changed. So in a few seconds, you see here that status is already updated here, and we have an activity, a history that explains us that the status was updated from drafting, waiting for manager approval. Now, the management part for our contract, if we press menu directly from here, we will see the main menu, and now we want to try the contract management action option, and here we see the total number of contracts associated with this manager, and here down we see a list with summaries. We have the contract type and the number of the contracts associated with this category. Because we do already the fleet registration before, we will press fleet, and after this we will see all the contracts from this category. For each contract you will see summary details, including the download link and the number of days waiting for the manager approval. For each contract you have two options: modify directly the status or see more details before to modify the status. And in the end, we have two general options: go to the menu or go one step back. The last one is our registered contract, and I will press details. And now we will see some information, all information about this contract. You can go back, reject or approve this contract. You can go back and don't change the status. If you press reject, Kate asks you if you want to add a note for this action. And after this, the status for the contract is updated in the system and returned to the employee. After this, if we press approve For example, firstly, Kate asked us if our contract is IFRS 16 complaint, and here we have some information about what means this IFRS 16. I will press yes in this condition, and Kate asked me also here if I want to add a note. I will press no. And in this moment, before to change the status for our contract, we need to send the contract to sign. And firstly, we need to tell some information about the first signatory and the second one. So I will put my address email here, KPMG, and my name, my first name, and my last name. And now I will put the same information for the beneficiary. And now first name, I will put Radu and reCaptcha. What happening in this moment? Kate show us a summary with all this information. We can modify or we can go to the next step. I prefer to go to the next step now. Here we see also the PIN code. You need to complete the PIN code when you sign the contract. And in this moment, the status for this contract is updated. We see here, and we can repeat the same action for the same category contract, or we can change the category for the contract. What happening for the electronic signature? I don't receive yet the email, but firstly, the provider, the first recipient will receive an email with the signing link. Just a second. I received this with the signing link. I will open.
Loredana, we don't see your email in case you want.
Just a second. It's okay now?
Yeah.
Thank you. I will put the PIN code, and what happening here, we can go to the last page in our contract, put a single click here, and in this moment we sign the contract for the locator part. And if you press finish, the second recipient will receive the identical email, an identical email with the link for the signing, and after this, both recipients will receive a copy for the contract. And that's it here in the chatbot. Now I will let my colleague Radu to explain some about what's happening in Plant and App behind.
Thank you very much, Loredana. Right, so jumping to the application. So everything that you say you saw until right now was Plant and App communicating with the Druid virtual assistant through APIs. So all the information that was exposed to the bot was exposed through the APIs, and also APIs were used for the bot to put information back into the system. The interesting part here was that we not only that we created a whole lot of options for the contract management system that we're showing you right now, but one thing that I'm really happy about and I really want to point out is that we used an integration with the Word documents, and we were able to replace informations from existing Word documents from template Word documents to generate actual contracts, and then use Kate to go and do the electronic signature. So overall, we were able to transform something like this, which just had a lot of blanks, and had a lot of blank to something like this, which has the majority of the fields already filled in, and only that based on the Kate bot. Now, and one thing that I want to mention is that the bot, all the informations and everything that the bot showed, and all the options that you had during demo were actually pulled from the system. So all the providers that you were showing from the system, they were here, and they had all the information right into the system. All the contract types that you are seeing here, they're here into the system. Everything was put out there for the bot. And the flow that you are showing, and when I'm saying the flow, basically I'm meaning for example, the fields that we were completing into we are asking the bot to collect from the end user to fill in the contract itself, were set up in front into in Plant and App as inputs of what the contract will need. So it's gonna need to fill in the system, to fill in the contract, the Word document. Something really interesting was the approval flow that you just saw. So you saw that there was this document that we generated. We moved from an employee to a manager, and for this to happen, we created our own structure of workflows, and each individual workflow has its steps defined. The really interesting thing here is the fact that you can have as many workflows as you want, because the build itself is will manage to have as many and many roles into the system as you need, and as many steps as you need for a document to get approved. So for example, the one that we just saw early, I think it was the fleet contract approval, and itself it's assigned to be only available to approve a fleet contract. But if we do a step further in and we check out the workflow steps, we'll see how the structure is actually being done right now. So the trick here was that we have different roles that the system can handle, and we are basically telling the system, hey, if a document is of a type fleet, and a staff role sees it in the status of draft, he or she can move that document from the draft status to the waiting for manager approval, which actually happened in the demo earlier. Also, it has an option to see if it's going to require reasons for moving the additional notes for, hey, I moved this to your approval. Please take a look at something that it's good or not good in that document, and so on and so on. So the manager at that point has two options. It can either approve or reject the document. So the interesting part is that you can at any moment you can decide to add steps and add basically lattice of a graph in the approval flow to see from this role if the document is in this status for this role, he can move it from a status to another. In the end, you either get an approve or reject, or whatever you decide to finish the flow with, you can do that. And the implementation itself, there are some workflows that are basically processing this repetitive logic. Who's the person in actually taking action? In which status is each individual document, and where it needs to go. Something that you are seeing right here in the end, it's something that the IFRS 16 is a compliance that some of the contracts have to have here in Europe, and we also tracking some specific movements of the document from a specific status to another may require the decision of, for example, in this case, a manager to say, yes, this document is compliant with IFRS 16 or is not compliant, and so on. So yes, the platform itself, the Plant and App platform, can also do the same steps that the bot done, but I think it's really interesting to see, like, it's an assisted flow of generating a contract and moving a contract through an approval flow from a person to person. No need to no need to interact with the system anymore. We just need to chat with the bot, and we'll make the whole process a lot more easier and I hope fun. Why not? Now I'm seeing that we're getting close to the end, so I would like to leave a few minutes to the end. If anyone has questions or anyone is interested in something specific from this demo, Bogdan, I invite you to take over.
Yes, there is a question in the chat. I think I asked you this question, Radu, as well a couple of days ago. What method was used to refresh the grid on the user page when the chat made the API call to update data?
Oh, yes, sure. Let me show you really quickly. So this is an option. If you're going to go into editing of that listing module, you have an option. It's not they're not callbacks really. It's a refresh, auto refresh mechanism that you can do. So I just set the grid to refresh every 10 minutes, so it's gonna update the data to relevant modifications that happen to the database. So you have here at the top, you can either set it, usually by default it's set to manual, but you can mark the auto option and you have to set the refresh option in seconds. It's gonna be a little bit compute expensive, so don't set it up too fast, just as much as you need, and it feels relevant to each individual situation where you need to update the information.
So Jim, this is one option. And of course, since you are a regular in this webinar, if you go back to the pusher integration that Dale did, that might be also a better way to do it, because you only do it when an event happened. So you do it programmatically instead of querying every couple of seconds. And I bet, Dale, this is what you wanted to add.
Well, yes, I was going to make sure that we knew that there was questions and answers, and there's still time for any more if someone has one. But yeah, absolutely, pusher could have been used. I was curious how Radu did it as well. So yet another feature that's built into our product that I wasn't aware of.
Cool.
The automatic refresh.
Yes. So this goes out to point out that this event is made for geeks. So. Because we are really interested in the cool things that you can do technically. So very cool techniques. So I think we are closing to the end. So I wanted to thank every one of you for being here in this webinar, both to everybody attending, but also to the presenters, to Radu, to Loredana, Dale, Reza, thanks a lot for participating and building yet another low-code Café episode. So we'll see you again next week. And until then, if you can share your feedback, the feedback form is in the chat window. If you can share your feedback, it really helps us improve our content for the next editions. So thanks again for being here, and see you next week. Bye.